topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart.
Hello and welcome to It's Your Voice, the show that hosts enriching conversations in diversity. My name is Bahia Yaksan. I am a diversity educator and a coach, and I support organizations and individuals in identifying patterns of bias that cause harm and helping them develop new patterns of behavior that create more belonging and more inclusion, which ease tension and make life better for everyone. So this program is the first of a series brought to you by the City of Davis Arts and Cultural Affairs Program and the California Creative Corps, a pilot program funded by the City of Sacramento's Office of Arts and Culture and the California Arts Council, a state agency, as an engagement campaign designed to increase public awareness about issues of social justice, climate resiliency, and more. The Creative Corps program is backed by Governor Gavin Newsom and the state legislature, and it looks to increase public awareness on topics such as health and safety, water and energy conservation, climate mitigation, emergency preparedness, and social justice and civic and community engagement. We very much appreciate our sponsors and especially the City of Davis for bringing Kenneth Arnold to us, who is interpreting for us. And I want you to know a little bit about Kenneth's background. He graduated from UC Santa Cruz in 2022 with a BA in art with a minor emphasis in education. He works closely with people with disabilities through his work as a freelance American Sign Language aide and interpreter, and as a recreation leader with the City of Davis's Adaptive Recreation Program. Kenneth is a visual artist whose drawings and paintings focus on his experience as a disabled person living and thriving in a culture that marginalizes those with disabilities. Kenneth, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate you being here. Lucas Hatton, he, him, and Oona Hatton, she, her, are the co-artistic directors of Davis Repertory Theatre. They are the opening guests again of this series that's sponsored by the Creative Corps Partnership. So they are co-artistic directors of the Davis Repertory Theatre, and together they direct, write, produce, and work as dramaturgs who will describe their work with the theater, and as well as discussing teaching performance, which I can't wait to hear about. Lucas has directed several acclaimed productions, including See You in My Dreams, Hammer Theater, San Jose, Incident at Vichy, Steep Theater, and Foolin Around with Infinity, Phalanx Theatre. The latter two both received Critic's Choice in the Chicago Reader. He also served as artistic director of the Educational Theater Company, Playmakers Lab in Chicago. Lucas has performed in many video games, that sounds very interesting, commercials, and plays. In the Bay Area, he performed with San Francisco Playhouse, Just Theater, Marin Shakespeare, and Livermore Shakespeare. In Chicago, he performed with Steppenwolf, The Hypocrites, The Gift, Dog and Pony, and Improv Olympic. He teaches performance and social justice at San José State University and holds an MFA in dramatic art from UC Davis, where he will be returning this fall as a guest director. Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you.
Oona, you're welcome. Oona Hatton is an associate professor in the Communications Studies Department at San Jose State, where she teaches performance studies courses on race, ethnography, and ensemble and theory. She is a member of Davis's Ethnic Studies Coalition and currently serves as the chair of the Davis Arts Alliance. Oona holds a PhD in theater and drama from Northwestern University. Oh, wow. This is very impressive. Well, thank all of you for being here.
It's our pleasure. We're excited. And yeah, Kenneth, I hope you can hear us okay. Sounds like it. Okay, well.
But I haven't heard my bio. I don't think I've heard my bio read aloud ever, Bahia. So it definitely sounds impressive when you read it.
Or signed, for that matter.
That's right.
Yeah, Critic's choice. It's very, very. There's so much I want to ask about. But before we start, is there anything you want to add about the Creative Core initiative and how this great, meaningful grant is empowering artists to really focus on social justice and talk about what's happening and where it's happening and any particular issues that you're working on with your theater company?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I could start by talking. Yeah, I could start by talking about the Creative Core grant a little broadly. And since the series is going to be focusing on that. So the Creative Core grant, which is as you said, a 3-year pilot program from the California Arts Council, is really, I think it's coming out of this belief and this understanding that artists possess some really valuable skills as communicators, as problem solvers, as creators of community. These are all things that artists do, kind of naturally, instinctually. And so the Arts Council was interested in figuring out ways that artists could become more integrated into, parts of our society where you don't usually see artists, namely in the government. So thinking about how the skills that we already have might get utilized in partnerships with government entities, so with cities, counties, schools, etc. So this, it's my understanding, this is sort of the grand vision. And, in its very early stages, this is a sort of attempt to start fostering some of these artistic civic relationships in a way that not just like, oh, we're gonna, paint a picture or put on a play or write a song, but that we're actually going to partner with different community and civic entities to use our communication and creative skills to help them solve, problems or work on projects that they're interested in kind of breathing new life into, or brand new things that are starting. So that's kind of a big picture of sort of our understanding of what the vision was for this funding. And then the particular grant that we are working on, of course, the grants get spread out across the state. Our particular grant comes from the Sacramento Arts and Culture Foundation, who gave it to the city of Davis. And the city of Davis gave it to 3 theater companies in town. So Davis Repertory Theatre, us, Davis Shakespeare Festival, and Bike City Theater Company are the 3 companies who are working with the city of Davis on this grant. And our civic partner for this grant is the Hate Free Together initiative, which, and I realize I'm just throwing all this stuff out there, but this is sort of the, the infrastructure partnership that is underneath, all the activities that we've been doing related to Creative Core. Is that too much? Maybe that's too much exposition. Well, too late now.
And I could just add briefly, one of the opportunities that the work has afforded is for us to be regularly in conversation with local government entities. And one of the things that they were aspiring towards with this work was, they said, we feel like we hear from the same people all the time through the regular channels about what the problems are, or in Davis, or in Yolo County more broadly, or at UC Davis, or with DJUSD, Davis Joint Unified School District is another one of the entities. Sorry about that, interpreter. Davis Joint Unified School District. And so they said, we feel like we're not, but we feel like we're not hearing from the community broadly enough, that we feel like we hear from the same people over and over who come to city council meetings or whatever it may be, but we also feel that there is a communication gap that exists. And so that's why the artists were enlisted to work through our creative, imaginative capacities to try to get to a new level of conversation with stakeholders in the community, particularly who are in areas that were identified through something called the Healthy Places Index, which they wanted us to look at, and that the Creative Core was looking at, to have conversations about the state of the wellness in the community and how it can be improved upon. So that's our what sometimes feels like a ambitious task, and that we can get overwhelmed with sometimes, but also has prompted a lot of great conversations that we wouldn't have been a part of, both with these entities, but also in concert with the other theater companies, which is not to get too far ahead, but that's been something that has been unique about it. Also, usually, theater companies, maybe they get along with each other, but often, artist groups are kind of just focused on their own group and making their own work. And this has afforded sort of an intra-theater network to be created, where we can share ideas with each other and say, well, how are you going to go about this? And to do some brainstorming and problem solving along the way.
Thank you for filling out the picture.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So how's it going? Let me start with a broad question, and particularly, what has the Davis Repertory Theatre Company been able to focus on and help you cultivate?
Yeah.
Who you want to? Let's see. Well, we had one primary project, which maybe I'll let Luke talk a little bit about, but our sort of ancillary project that we were able to do was to support a pre-existing program, which is the Ethnic Studies YOLO Academy. So this is a local summer program that's run by Dr. Melissa Moreno, who I know you're going to have on later, so I won't say too much about it. But it's an incredible opportunity for junior and high school students to learn about ethnic studies concepts, kind of to supplement and, partner with what is going to be, the curriculum that will be part of the graduation profile. This is for students who haven't gotten that yet, or before it is fully developed. There's this program, and so we were able to support making that program happen this summer, which is the third time that it's happened. So that's one thing we were able to do, and that's because we had this funding. We could support some additional instructors for that program that already had, some instructors, but we were able to support some additional artist interns to help with the staffing of that.
And the project that we are really in the midst of now, if you could, right on the other side of our computer, our kitchen table has interview transcripts strewn across it with highlighting and color coding and things. So we have been listening to a series of, is it 20 interviews, Oona?
It's more than 20. I can't remember exactly.
More than 20, upwards of 20 interviews, each one over an hour. It's on average that we have conducted with members of Woodland, but also outside of Woodland. So perhaps listeners and viewers may know that there was a recall effort of a school board member in Woodland, and that vote for the recall, yay or nay, was in March in the primary election, March 5th. I guess was the recall date this year, or the primary election this year. And so that was to recall a school board member who was saying transphobic and anti-ethnic studies things at school board meetings and on the school board, getting, it appears, their talking points from the local but also national organization known as Moms for Liberty. And Davis listeners know that we have our own unfortunate history with that in somewhat recently in the community. And so this recall effort is just an incredible story of hyper-local activism. And when I say hyper-local, it is because those who could vote yay or nay on the recall had to have a residence in a particular area of Woodland, the trustees area that they represented. So the final vote ended up being something like 900 yay and 400 nay. So, that gives you an idea of the scale. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of votes on either side, but and so it's just been so inspiring, really, to listen to these interviews that we conducted, to re-listen, and then the incredible amount of work and dedication that was put into this effort, because as a couple of the folks who were most involved said, there just didn't seem to be any choice. This was something that had to be done. And so I don't want to give too many spoilers about the project, because that's our artistic project right now. But and we've gotten to that as our main project through a lot of conversations about how the best way is to proceed given the parameters of the grant. But so if we were sort of operating in our normal theater company ways, we would be developing this, and then hiring actors and figuring out when the production was going to be and all of that normal stuff. But because of the Creative Core grant, we are approaching it now as like, we're hoping to have something resembling a script that we'll bring, but we're going to bring it to these 4 community readings. So we're not going to do any rehearsal. We're not going to hire any actors. We're not going to, we might bring 1 or 2 like plants, right? If we know people who can really read well, but we don't want to make it, like whatever performative quality it will have, that will happen organically in the moment with the community members who are there. So, we're going to have one in Woodland. Oona can tell you the dates because she's been doing the specific programming of each of the places and times. But that is going to be, we'll read the script in whatever form it is, incorporating these 20 plus voices that we've spoken with. And then that is going to be a springboard for a conversation about how does hate manifest in your community. And it's, the thing that keeps revealing itself with each interview is all of the cross-sectional social issues that come up
Oh.
with regard to this. So the history of the school board member getting on in the first place came out. It seems to be, the general consensus is because the serving school board member was unpopular or unpopular enough because they wanted kids to be wearing masks during school because that's what the health inspector said at the time because it was during COVID. And so there was a bit of a kind of anti-masking force perhaps in play at the time when they were unseated. And so that's just one example of one of the social issues that is interesting to go back and think about, and remember that what we all went through during COVID. And I think in many ways, we haven't totally processed all of that yet. So anyway, there's a lot of touch points that will come up in the reading that will hopefully prompt a meaningful conversation about how to make change.
That sounds fascinating. I can't wait to hear more about it. So Oona, you were about to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I wanted to just kind of close the loop on something that Luke was saying about, this is actually, I think, a great example of the vision of the creative core. So we started by conducting these interviews, when we decided we were going to work on, kind of chronicling this recall campaign. Yeah. And this happened because, I happened to see an email where the person who had helmed the whole thing mentioned that someone said, this is a really important moment in local political history, in queer history, in grassroots activism. And, it would be great to have a record of what has happened. So, please send me your memories or your experiences so I can try to, save them. And so when I saw that email, I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity for us to kind of help with that record keeping. And you don't necessarily think of a theater company as an archiving, operation, but that's a little bit kind of what we went into this thinking about, is that we would collect these oral histories. And then, of course, because we're a theater company, the more we collected, the more we were like, wow, this is really make an amazing play. But at least for this kind of iteration, this script is really in service of the conversation that we hope will come after. So we want to have a shortish script, to take these 500 plus pages of transcripts that we have and to, whittle it down to kind of a short script that we can read as a group, and then have a discussion, whether it's, people kind of processing their participation in the recall, the impact that they feel like, our education system is sort of undergoing right now because of various political, positions and ideologies. And then maybe hopefully conversation that happens, after the event as well. But really, it's not, as Luke was saying, it's not like, oh, let's get a costumer and some props and put on a show, but rather let's use the sort of theatrical form to create an opportunity for people to come together, to be together, and to have dialogue. And hopefully even, change some hearts and minds.
I think it's a brilliant idea. And being in that community, I know that what you're documenting definitely had an impact on people's lives, a negative, frightening, and sometimes people were threatened. So thank you for taking that project on. That feels like real direct service art. So thank you again for addressing that. That seems like a really great application towards using art to create social justice. And I think it sounds like it would be very therapeutic for community readers to come and do the reading. And boy, that'll be talk about moving people and opening hearts to converse and process. and think of constructive solutions and develop community solutions to deal with it.
We hope so.
Yeah.
So could you explain for people who have video and can see the photos? Can you explain what they are?
Yeah. So this is interesting. This is interesting that this is the first one that came up. So a couple years ago, we, so would have been, when was the Dobbs decision? 2022? Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So
We had an opportunity to, I was on sabbatical from San José State. And so I was going to be able to spend a little bit more time working on Davis Rep. And after the Dobbs decision, I thought I really want to make a piece about women's reproductive health. And so we solicited community members who were not actors to devise a theater piece that ultimately we ended up calling Gynecologos. So logos meaning knowledge. So, and you know, as I said, this is kind of the magic of community-based theater. Is I thought the piece was going to be all about abortion and reproductive, freedom, and but I really wanted it to be led by the participants. So we had these 10 community members who came together to create this play, and they all went out and conducted interviews with another woman or female identifying person who they knew, and we came up with a group of questions together. So we created this group of questions together. They all went out, interviewed someone, and then they each performed a section of the interview for as part of our play as the person who they interviewed. And the photo that you're showing is we held this performance at the library, and as part of the kind of pre-show community engagement, we had up all these papers with different topics: pregnancy, sexuality. You can see there we had miscarriage, gender identity, and then we asked community members, audience members who came, to put on the left-hand side a dot representing how comfortable they were talking about a topic. So green if you're very comfortable, yellow if you're not so comfortable, red if you really are not comfortable talking about it. And then, I'm trying to remember. I think one side was how much you think you know about this topic, and one side was how comfortable you are talking about this topic. So so you can see here with sexuality, you've got this cross section of
spectrum.
Spectrum of how comfortable people are talking about these topics. And this is just sort of to get people kind of thinking about their own access points. But what I wanted to say was, yes, I thought the play was going to be all about abortion because that was what was in my head. But really, what was preoccupying the performers who who worked on the show and the people they interviewed, the show ended up being a lot more about gender roles, traditional gender roles, and and so that was really interesting. That that was what came out. That was what came up in the questions, and then when people interviewed someone, those were the parts of the interviews that were most captivating to the actors. And I should say also that these community members were not actors. We had, I think out of the 10, we had maybe 3 who were actors, but the rest are just people who are like, oh, this seems like a fun, activity. And so, I'll stop talking. So you want.
It was a terrific show. I hope we recorded it or something somewhere. And I just to share the memory that still sticks with me from that show. I was working to produce it a little bit. Oona did pretty much all of the legwork on that show, so I can't take any credit. But so it was an entirely female identifying cast and folks who they interviewed. And one of the people interviewed was my mother for the show. She grew up in a house with 5 boys, so so she didn't get a lot of time to talk about feminism necessarily when we were growing up. And one of the questions I remember was, what was something that you were told growing up about gender or about the other sex? And she said, I was told, don't be better than a boy at anything. Don't be better than them at sports, and you need to work to make sure that they always think that they are the smartest and smarter than you. And
interesting.
That's just, that was,
explicitly.
It was my Luke Skywalker moment where you go back and you reassess everything about your life, and so I am your father moment. But anyway, yes, yeah. And so that really still sticks with me to this day. So to me, that show, Gynecologos, so tangibly and visibly opened up this space for this conversation. That opened up a safe space for that conversation. That wasn't a conversation that I personally was going to encounter anywhere else. So, good job, Oona.
Wow. Yeah, sounds. I hope it's recorded too, or done again.
Actually, Luke forgets he was actually the one.
Oh, that's right. That's what I did. I videotaped.
But you can't. It is impossible to capture theater on video. I mean, the National Theater Live does a pretty good job, but we're not National Theater Live.
We need a couple more grants to get that technical capability.
Yeah, here we go. This is kind of
I might have taken that picture.
Yeah, so you can see. No, this is actually by Hannah Nakano, who is a local photographer. I should plug her name.
Editor of the
Davis Dirt. Yes. So that was in that photo. You can see one of our performers, Jen Grace, actually adapted her interview into a song on the ukulele. And so you can see her playing the ukulele. Yes, and you can see an ASL interpreter in the background as well.
Nice.
So yeah.
And that was at the. That was at the Mary L. Stevens Library in their community.
Gynecologos.
Gynecologos.
Wow, a great name. There's Oona.
Well, there's me.
There's my headshot taken by a great photographer in Oakland.
Yeah, so this is just an image of the postcard. So that spring we were able to have 3 events at the library. We called it the Saturday series. The first one was Gynecologos, so that was a community devised performance. The second one, En las Sombras, was a scripted play by a really talented playwright, Jordan Ramirez Puckett. So they wrote this play that is sort of a parable about immigration and gender identity and family, and it was inspired by family separation at the border. So we Luke was performed in that show. I just produced it. We had a director and a cast. That was the second event in the Saturday series, and then the third event, where you see the flames licking the blue sky, was the WUI, which is an acronym for the Wildland Urban Interface, which is the place where civilization and wilderness meet. And so that was a play about wildfires in California. Okay, and then I think this is the last show we have up. Here first was an audio piece that we made with a bunch of local and regional Native artists, citizens, folks about living as a Native person on Wintun homeland here in Yolo County. And so that was a piece that was designed to be listened to as you were walking on a route. We had a couple recommended routes here in Yolo County that you could walk while listening to this account of history and culture Yes, and then this was a play reading that we sponsored at Juneteenth this year as part of the Creative Corps by the center. A woman, Jasmine Washington, a very talented playwright who has written a play called Succulent that hopefully will get produced soon. So yeah, we were able to do kind of an excerpt at the Davis Juneteenth Festival.
I got to see an excerpt.
Yes,
I got to see an excerpt. Well, I have to tell you that we have only 5 minutes left.
Huh.
So there's so much more. I definitely want to give you a minute for your closing. Oh, that's a great photo of Lucas.
Oh, great.
So not only do I want to give you a minute to say your closing thoughts, but I have two more questions. I really want to know, is this teaching performance? Is this what you mean by teaching, like developing and supporting and facilitating community devised theater and productions?
Oh, that's great. I think that I would say that the practice that we are continually developing at Davis Rep is definitely coming from our experience with teaching performance, and in our classes at San José State, we're actually in the communication studies department there, and so a lot of our students are comm studies majors, so they usually or rarely consider themselves to be performers or actors, and so it's really about at least in my class and the classes I've taught, creating a safe space for people to discover their own voices and to discover theatrical techniques that might be useful for them to tell a story, whatever it is, whether it's their own personal story or whether it's fictitious or whether it's something a broader piece that we're devising as an ensemble. But that's a bit about how my coursework goes at San Jose State. So the course I teach there most often is called Performance as Practice.
1 minute.
So 1 minute. Oh, great. Okay, Oona, go.
So yes, but yeah, that is beautiful to say that hopefully we're doing the same thing with willing participants in our community up here as well.
Do you want to say, can you say the dates of, or should we invite people to come to the readings?
I would say please check our website in a week or two for the community readings for the oral history project, and we'll be having those in Davis and Woodland, and we would love for folks to come and be in conversation with us.
We're at davisrep.org, davisrep.org.
Okay, and I'm supposed to ask everyone, what kind of America do you want? If you have 10 seconds, what kind of America do you want?
One that accepts everybody for who they are and who they wish to be.
Thank you so much. I really thank all of you. Thank you so much, Kenneth Arnold, for interpreting for us. Thank you, Rebel, for the background engineering this program. Thank you, Oona Hatton and Lucas Hatton. I can't wait to see more from Davis Repertory Theatre. And thank you for the Creative Corps, who has sponsored this podcast, and the City of Davis. And may we all have enriching conversations this week. We'll see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY.com and Talk4TV.
Thank you.
Articulate speech, inarticulate speech of the heart. Inarticulate speech, inarticulate